Um, yeah, so as I was saying, my name is Tina, and I'm joining you from the Learning Services team. I do have Maude and Elise and Stephanie who are joining us in this webinar as well. So they'll be, interacting with you in the chat function. So if you do have any question throughout the session, don't hesitate to ask those questions. So as you know, this webinar, we're looking at the new Gmail. So Google has made some recent changes, and I thought that it would be great to go through some of those changes with you. As agents with Royal LePage, we primarily use Gmail for general communication throughout your business. So it's very important to stay updated and just making sure that you're making, the most out of this new features that have been introduced. So again, you've already started introducing yourself. So, continue introducing yourself in the chat function. If you have any questions, you can go ahead and direct your questions through that function. If you experience any issues in terms of your screen, you can then refresh. So you can refresh by pressing on the F5 or the Control R, and your screen should be able to refresh, and you'll just continue joining us. So on the agenda today, we are just essentially going to review, Gmail as a whole. So just review some of the settings. So the very basics of Gmail. And then from there, we'll look at some of the new features that were introduced. And then just, a very quick overview on Google Drive as well as Calendar. So essentially, the goal with this webinar is to provide an overview of Gmail and these new features while highlighting, again, some of the features that are still consistent on the platform. So to get started, I'm not sure if you guys were able to download the Google Chrome extension that was attached to the Eventbrite page, but I think Maude can share it on the chat function. So I suggest using Google Chrome when you're trying to access Gmail, just because it's faster and it syncs everything in very nicely. So that extension essentially, once added to your browser, it's basically a library of questions. So whatever support that you need in terms of the entire G Suite, you're able to access that, some of those resources via that extension. So this is going to be very sort of a hands-on. So let's get started. If you have your computer in front of you, you can just go again on your Google Chrome and log into your Gmail. So let's log into our Gmail accounts. So we're going to show you some of these new features that are introduced. But first, again, let's just go through the very first general overview again of the settings within Gmail. So once you log into your account, this is my Tina at Royal LePage account. The first thing that I want for everyone to do, essentially, is to go into the settings. So once you're in the settings, so you see there is a wheel, like that little wheel thing. So once you click on that, and then you click on the settings, and then it brings us to the general settings window. So this is a general settings for the email itself. So here we're able to set some parameters. So we start with the language. So if you use your Gmail primarily in English, you can very easily set that to English or French. So let's see if I can zoom in there a little bit more so you can see. So you can very easily set your language, and you can set, the amount of conversations that you like to show, just to have your email catered, like your email setting itself to be catered to your own specific needs. So then the other thing that you can do is you can define specific, tags, because it sometimes happens that when you're sending emails, the way that we actually compose our emails can be very inconsistent throughout. So what helps is just setting a general default text. So you can choose the default font that you want to carry out through. You want your emails to be written in throughout your emails. The other feature that's also really interesting, and this is one of the new features, and I'll expand on this later on in the session, is the nudges. So nudges suggest emails that you can reply to. So if there is an email that you received and maybe you've read that email, but you haven't actually responded to the email, then the nudges essentially brings back that email and ask a suggestion or suggest for you to respond to that email. So maybe if this is an email that you need to follow up on. So that's a really key feature to actually activate. So I would suggest then you go ahead and click activate. So click on the suggest emails to reply to and click on the suggest emails to follow up on. So once we have both of those functions activated, you want to then click on hover action. So hover action also is really important because it allows for you to gain very quick access to some certain functions. So functions such as being able to snooze emails, being able to mark your email as read, or mark it again as unread, and also archive or delete specific emails. So also you want to enable the the action. So go ahead and do that, have it enabled. And then the rest, we can just maybe scroll down, make sure that we have our photo, we have our signature. We've already talked several times about having a signature within our emails. We can go ahead and input the signature in there. And then the very last thing, again, this is a very general setting. So the very last thing would be to have vacation responders on if we're, planning on taking vacation time sometime soon, or, switching it off if we are just coming back from a vacation. And then you don't want to forget to click on save. So again, this is a very general setting within the email. Okay, some of you are saying you can't see nudges. Are you using your G Suite email or your personal email? Because some of these functions, some of the changes actually, if you're not seeing the nudges, it's possible that you haven't activated the new layout. You haven't activated the new, you haven't activated the new feature. And it's also really important that for this specific function that you're actually on your at royallopage.ca email. So the nudge function should really be in there. I know some of these functions don't carry through across the personal and the G Suite, but within the G Suite, if you have activated the new layout, you will definitely be able to see that in. So, and if you're able to see it, then definitely go ahead and have it activated. And then the other thing that you might want to activate, you just click to activate. Essentially, you're clicking on this on the features that you want to activate, and then at the very bottom you have to just click on save changes. So that's how you activate the features. And because this is a new feature, it hasn't actually rolled out. G Suite hasn't actually rolled out all of this for all of G Suite users. So Google has rolled it out to certain users. So you might find that not everyone actually has this new layout, right? So if you go to your let's just go back to our inbox just to make sure that we're all on the same page. So if you go back to your inbox, and then if you click on here, if you see an option to try out the new Gmail, click on that option, and then your entire layout will activate with the new feature. If you don't have that, it just means that the new Gmail hasn't actually rolled out to you yet, because Google hasn't rolled it out to everyone. It's just sort of still in that testing phase. So let's go back into the settings. And again, this is a general settings. We want to click on everything that we want activated within our inbox. So we have new mail notifications. So you want to turn that on. It's also important to have important mail notification on, but I always recommend this new mail notification just because you don't want to miss anything. So the extension will not show you how to use G Suite. The extension essentially is a library of resource. So it guides you on the different tools within Gmail, within your email, the Gmail suite essentially. So it directs you how to, use Google Drive. It directs you on how to, um, create labels in your email and all of those things that we're going to look at today. So it's just a resource. It actually doesn't have anything to do with the email itself. It's an extension that provides additional support if you do have questions here and there. So let's not focus about the extension for the moment. Let's just focus on trying to see if we're all within this new feature. If we are not all activate, like if we don't all have this new email activated, that's fine, because as I mentioned, Google hasn't actually rolled this out to everyone. It's still in the testing phase, so it's just been rolled out to certain G Suite accounts. So if you see here, let's say if you're within your inbox, if you go back in this wheel, if you see here, it says from mine, go back to classic Roller Page Mail. So if I click on here, it takes me back to the previous one, right? So if you click on that wheel, it should give you an option to say, to try the new layout, or it should give you an option to go back to the classic Gmail. So but if you don't have it, it's fine. You can still stay on and just follow, because essentially the plan is this will be rolled out to every G Suite user. So now that we've saved our changes, let's just head on to labels. Again, you want to select labels that are important in terms of being able to see all your emails as they come in. So for me, I have emails that are starred, so I show those emails. For example, all my important emails, show them, chats, all of the other emails that I've sort of hidden within my inbox are spam, trash, and all of them. But you can definitely all activate those so you can show them, just so that you're not missing anything. So in terms of creating labels, so if you scroll down, there is a label section. So we want to be able to create a new label. So when you're thinking about creating label, you want to think about how you're actually going to be organizing your email. So for me, in my context, I organize my email in terms of the different things that I do. So if I'm maybe following up on invoices, then I have a label for invoice. If I'm following up on learning services, webinars, and trainings, so then I have a label for learning services, and so forth and so forth. So you want to be able to create labels that help you to actually organize your email, so you have very easy access to them. So if you want to create a label, you just then click on the create new label function, and then you can enter a label name. So for example, let's just say I want to let's say I want to create a label for French webinars. So I can have that title, and then you can also nest a label under a parent label. So for example, French webinar still falls under learning services. So then I would want to say maybe nest it under learning services, and then do that, and then I create that label. And that's that. So do we have any questions in terms of creating labels, and why it's important to have labels within your email, and how it should help you sort of organize your email? It's a very key function that I find is very useful for me, and I'll show you later in terms of how my own email actually is organized. Label is the primary is the primary way that I use it, and this is where you will see it. So for example, here, if you go on the inbox settings, so this is, again, it's how your inbox will actually look like to you when you actually open your account, right? When you open your email. So you can either have your inbox type as showing the important emails first. I have mine as priority first, and then within each inbox section, I have the filters. So for example, if you will see mine is very customized. So for example, my first inbox section says important and unread. For you, the second one might say something about read, or you could say something else. Maybe you could say start or unread. But if you wanted to create or to have a filter, sorry, not a filter. If you wanted to have a label as part of your inbox section, you can then click on this option right next to each inbox section, and then you can click on more options. So you can select which label you want to show within the inbox section. So in my case here, I have, again, learning services / communications. So all of those emails that are coming from learning, that are coming to me regarding any sort of learning services inquiry, or also emails that I'm circulating around regarding communications and trainings and webinars, all sort of are saved underneath that. So again, just to go back to labels, just to make sure that we're on the same page before moving forward. To create a label, you want to go back, you're in your settings, you go into the labels function. So create a new email, enter your email name, and then you nest it. Okay, so once you've nested that, or if you don't have to nest it, but in case you do, then you just go ahead and create and so forth. So now to have that label in your email, let me just show you what I'm talking about, just so you have a visual. So for example, if you look at my email, I have, these are the labels. So I have important and unread. I have all learning services and communications. And then I have all learning services / invoice. And then I have everything else, right? So when I'm talking about having your labels as your inbox section, this is what I'm referring to. So it's easier for you to be able to categorize all of the different emails that you're getting. And then it's also easy for you to sort of just archive them within those different inboxes and retrieve them later on. So this is how I organize my email, and it works for me. It doesn't necessarily need to work for everyone. You can leave your email sections as as within the settings already. So if you go back into your inbox, you can leave the sections as normal. So normally in your case, you might have important and unread, and then you might have important, and then you might have unread, and then you would have starred. So that's the very generic one that comes within the email setting. But if you wanted to go the extra and then just sort of like customize your email, your inbox as to your daily needs, and that's what I suggest you do. So once you have all of that, so again, just to show you how to have a label as an inbox section, you click on the option button just right next to each section. So this is section 1, section 2, section 3, and section 4. For my section 1, I just leave it as important and unread. So I want all of my unread emails at the very top of my inbox. And then section 2, I say I want it to be all of my learning services / communication emails. So then I go to more option, and then I select the label, right? So I select that label, and then it just feeds into that. And then, that's it. And any change that you make, don't forget to just save it. You have to save the changes, otherwise it won't apply. And again, yeah, so you can then manually show, if you want all important emails to be marked, then definitely click on the show markers, just so that you keep track of the emails that are also very important to you. I have also, in terms of filter emails, like filtering your emails, we'll get to the filters later on, but I have mine here as override filters, just because I don't want to miss anything that comes into my inbox. So I just leave it as that, and then just click save. So when the email comes to you in terms of, again, going back to this label. So let's say if I go into my first like I go back into my inbox, I get an email from the red market. I'm definitely, it doesn't come again labeled, right? You have to label that email. So all of your unread emails are coming here at the very top. So that's the first inbox that you see. So when I open this email from learning from the red market, that I can then label it, right? I can label it as let's see. I can label it as, let's say, what do I want to label the red market as? I can just label it as learning services, just for the example in this case. So you have to actually manually label the email so that it goes into that section of the inbox. So let's say I label that as, let's say, learning services and notes. It goes into my other inbox that I have, right? So this is why it's really important to have that the first inbox be the unread inbox, so that when an email comes into you, you're able to read that email and then, directly mark it as such. So you can mark it as read or unread, and then you can directly label that email as per the different labels that you've already developed. So that's how you're going to uh, organize your email as per label within that inbox. So if you're looking for an email that has to do with invoices, then you just go into your invoice section and filter that out. Or if you're looking for email that has to do with learning services and trainings, you go into your in that section of the inbox and filter that out. So essentially, you have to open the email to, when you're opening the email, to read it, and then go here on the label tab and then actually label that email. So for every single email that you get, and this is what I do, it's just a very simple it's just become a habit now. So if I get an email, I open the email, I respond to that email, but before even sending send, I already label that email. So then it's going into a specific email folder. Okay, perfect. So now let's go back into the setting. So that's label. Label is a very useful tool to have. And yeah, so you can run, if you activate all of that, then just don't forget to click save on it. And so you can filter through into your emails and into your inbox. And again, as I mentioned, within the actual inbox section, I select for filtered email. I select override filters just because I don't want to miss anything. I would rather manually delete emails than, filter them out and then miss out on potentially an important email. The other thing that might be useful as well is if, for example, if you have multiple Gmail accounts. Yeah, so once you receive an email, once you save an email, just to answer Georgiana's question, once you save an email within that specific label, it stays in your inbox. So it's there. It's already sort of archived within that inbox until you actually manually delete the email, but it's still there. So now if you're going to the accounts settings, this is a section that's really important for you. Say if you have two Gmail accounts. So if you have your personal and you have your Adrolo page, again, it's something that's more for convenience and ease, so that you're always having access to your email, to your all of your emails. You can actually add an email address so that when you're sending an email, you can send from within one email account. You can send from multiple accounts, right? So let me show you what I mean here. So if you see here, I have two options. So I have send mail as. So I can send email as just me, as Tina from Learning Services, or I can send an email as Learning Services. Again, this is not really something that's, it's for everyone, but if you have multiple accounts that you use always and are always checking your email, it's a useful tool to have to actually activate. So what you want to do, again, is just click on that. So you want to click on add another email address, add the email address, and then the next step would just be and that's it. The next step would be actually activating that within your email. So it's very simple. That's what I want to show you there. And then this is where I was mentioning about filters and why I sort of have my setting as overriding filters, just because I don't want to miss any important emails. If you wanted to create a filter, you can definitely go ahead and, so if you're in the settings page again, go into the filters and blocked addresses section, create a filter. Say if you so let's say if I'm filtering emails from the red market to learning services, and then let's say within the subject line somewhere there is the word sales, and then maybe it has additional words such as limited offers, and then has an attachment or doesn't have an attachment. So then you can also, in terms of filtering, you can be very specific and say, I want to filter out emails that, out of the size or doesn't contain these words. And then you create that filter. And then now, when an email that's coming into you, if that email matches any of these of those sort of filters that you've established, you can assign what here what you want to happen to that email. So you can say, for example, skip the inbox. So you can just archive that email directly because it's not something that you need to read. You can mark it as read. You can mark it as apply the label. So you want to directly send that email to a specific label. So learning services. So again, this is another way for you to actually directly send emails to those specific email sections that you've created. So those different labels that you've created. So if you don't want to be reading the emails and then manually labeling them, you can create those filters so that any email that comes with the specific filters that you've set out are sent to the specific labels. So they just go directly to those emails. So for example, if I get an email within those that falls within those filters, those filters that I established, then I want to say, okay, maybe all of the emails coming in from the red market going to learning services, I want those emails to go to my learning services label, right? And then you create that filter. So you click on create and you create the filter, or you can select any of the others. You can send a can response to that. So if it's an email that you don't want to be responding to all the time, if you have a can response already created, then you can definitely go ahead and create a can response for those specific filters. So in this case, let's say I'm applying the label to any of those email that has that fit the criteria for those filters, then I'll go ahead and create that filter. Yeah, so is there anything else that maybe I should explain in terms of the filters and just setting within your actual inbox and filtering your emails within your actual inbox? No, so all emails within the G Suite, I think, because it's your Royal LePage email. So once you have your at royallepage.ca email, that's the email that you will be using within the G Suite services. I'm not sure if I actually understand. Yeah, I'm not sure if I understand that question properly, but we'll look into it for further. In terms of blocking spam, if you've already, Jill, if you've already identified certain spams or emails that come to you too often, and they don't really add much to what you're doing on a daily basis, you can definitely create those filters to block out those spam, right? So for example, let's say again, if I'm getting an email from a very generic source, I'll write that there, and then if it's coming to my specific address, I write that address here, and then I look at some of the subjects that I've the subjects of past emails that I've received from that address, have that in there. Certain words that are also always within that email, have those words there. And then you can just filter, you can, then create the filter for that and mark it as spam. So let's say from earlier page customer service to Tina. I haven't selected any filters there yet. Um, so once you've created those filters, then you can either see here, let's say you can either delete that email directly as per the filter. You can um, then just categorize that. Yeah. So actually there actually isn't a way to just mark it as spam. There is a function here to never send it to spam, which is very interesting. But what you can actually do is to actually directly delete that email, or you can send it to a filter inbox. So, say if you've created an inbox section for all of the emails that you don't really read, or all of the emails that you don't, they're more sort of like marketing type emails that you don't read. You can create another email section, right? So you create a label, add that label to like your email section, and then you'd be able to create filters and transfer that there. So you're sort of either deleting all of the spam messages that you're getting, or then just creating another email label for them to be sent to directly. So yeah, so I haven't created an email. Let's do that. Okay, so let's go back into our settings where we've looked at filters, we've looked at labels. And the other thing that we could very quickly look into, but I think this is not really something um, that's important. The other thing that I wanted to show you guys actually, and I think this is something that's more relevant for the personal email, because as I mentioned, some of the new features that Gmail has released, they don't carry over through the G Suite. So you have certain features in the G Suite, and then you have certain features in the actual um, your personal email, right? So yeah. So the one thing that I wanted to do here is first I'll show you how to create custom replies or canned responses, and then from the canned responses, then I will ask for everyone to maybe go into your personal Gmail account, and there are certain new features within that Gmail account that I want to show you, and then we can just kind of play around with them as well. If you're unable to add the Google extension, it's okay. I just thought it would be a useful resource, because I added the extension to my Google Chrome, and I was able to have access to a lot of different resources. So a lot of different resources for creating labels, configuring your inbox, and just a lot of different things that are really important. But I think if it's not working, that's okay. What I can do is just look for other resources that could be useful, and then send them out after the session. So the last thing that I wanted to go into before we move into the personal Gmail account, because some of the new features are primarily in the personal Gmail account, is creating canned responses, right? So we're working on, we have maybe 9 to 5, sometimes even longer work hours. It's really important that when we're drafting emails, we're putting out our best foot forward, so we're not, just writing half-hearted emails. So having canned responses well in advance is really useful. So the way that you can go about developing these canned responses is essentially look at the different types of questions that you get throughout. So maybe questions about, someone's inquiring about a listing. So how would you respond to that? You create a canned response for that. So let's go ahead and do that. So if you go into your inbox, click on compose. So the other thing that you see here is within the new feature, there is this little main menu. So if you click on that main menu, it actually expands all of this settings, so you can see that in as a whole. But I like to make, I like a full screen, so I always hide that. So I just see only the emoticons, and then the actual text expands as I go in. But that's another, just another feature. But if you wanted to sort of play with that, expand it and see, you can expand it, or you can just sort of close it. So let's go back into creating canned responses or custom replies. Um, okay, so let's say that you wanted to create a custom response for an inquiry. So someone's inquiring about a listing. Yeah, so here you see there is a 4 dots, so that's more options. It gives you more options, and if you click on that, it takes you to the can response section, right? And if you already have some can responses, if you don't, you see, so in my case, I have a few different can responses. So it gives you the option to insert a can response. It gives you the option to save a can response under a new subject, for example, or it gives you the option to delete a can response. So let's say we wanted to respond to an email, an inquiry about a listing. So let's just drive, let's say hello mode. Okay, let's see. Hello mode. I don't think my keyboard wants me to type today. um, thanks for the inquiry. The listing is available. If you actually have a date for an open house, you can see the listing is available to be viewed on the specific day. It's located here and here, and provide the specifics of that listing. So once you've actually drafted a full concrete email specific to what the person is inquiring about, then you click on this more option, right? So you click on that option, you go on the canned responses, and then if you scroll down, you see the option to create a new can response. So it's very, very, it's in italics, so sometimes it's easy to miss, but you definitely want to pay attention to that, and then just click create can response, and then you give it a title. You can just give it a title, inquiry, or you can say listing inquiry, whatever works best for you, and then you create a can response. So that's already one can response that you've already created. And if you go back into your can responses, you see that it's there in listing inquiry. So now if you get an email, let's say if I go back to an inbox, let's see. Let's say if I go to an inbox here, and then I wanted to respond to that email. I can just select the can response to, right? So rather than then spending time and actually drafting that email. So imagine you're getting email inquiries about listings, several times a week. Drafting a repetitive email, can be tiring at times. So it definitely saves you some time to just go back into your can responses, find the response that's relevant to that specific inquiry, and then you just insert it. You might have to make certain modifications here and there, and that's it, right? But then you're saving yourself some time, to do other things. Maybe you have to prep for an open house. Maybe you have to prep for actually meeting a client and talking about a specific listing and seeing if they qualify and so forth. But that's a really useful tool to have as well, and it's definitely saves you time to engage on other areas of your business. So that's one thing that I wanted to show you before we move on into the personal Gmail, because the personal Gmail actually also has a lot more of the new features that haven't been transferred over to the G Suite platform. there is talk of it being transferred soon, but the time frame is still uncertain. And also just because a lot of these features are not necessarily they haven't been rolled out to everyone out yet, right? Because they're still in the testing phase, so to speak. So I have multiple Gmail accounts. So if I go into my personal account, which is also added here, you can sign out of your G Suite account and log into your personal account. And then I'm just going to show you some of the new features that are within the personal account. So before we do that, because these are new features, we definitely want to make sure that they're activated within the settings. So go into your settings first. And similarly, we're just going to make sure certain things are activated. So we have our, preferred language. We have how many number of emails we want to be seeing on our page maximum. The one thing that I would ask, which is all new, is the Smart Compose. So the Smart Compose is a new function that's it predicts, I guess, what you're writing. So it saves you time when you're composing an email. Um, so you want to turn on the writing suggestion so that as you're drafting an email, the suggestions come up. And then if you want to set a default reply behavior, so you don't see this in the G Suite email, you see this only in your personal. In my case, I will select reply all just because certain emails that I get need to be responded to a group of individuals rather than just responding to one. And then again, if I just want a consistent fill of my email, I select the specific text that I want to be using, and then you can select the size if you want like a normal text or large, depending on your vision, I guess. And then you can then decide if you want conversation view on and off, right? The other feature again, which is also in the G Suite version, is the nudges. So you definitely want to turn on the nudges even for your personal account. Yeah, Smart Compose, Catherine, you're correct. Smart Compose is not in the old version. That's why I'm suggesting that we turn it on. It is only for those, it's only for your personal G Suite account, and it's only for the the new account, right? So if you haven't, if Google hasn't rolled out the new Gmail for you, then you wouldn't have this. But if you are using the new Gmail, then you will have this option to turn on the Smart Compose. But again, this is in time, this is going to be rolled out for everyone. Again, you want to turn on the nudges, you want to turn on the hover actions. Again, the hover action allows you to very quickly delete an email, and I'll show you what that looks like. Delete an email, to archive or mark an email as read, and even snooze an email so that you can come back to it later on. And then the other thing is a preview pane. You can select preview pane for your email. And then also select for how long. Say if you wanted to mark a conversation as read, do you want that conversation to be marked immediately as you open that email, or a second or 20 seconds later as read? And again, it's really important for me to not miss any emails. So even if it's a junk or what I might consider to be a junk email, I always just say new email notifications on, so that any email that comes in, I can actually check. And if it's a junk email, then I can just filter it as such, label it as such. And then yeah, I think for personal, in terms of the general layout, that's about it. And then we want to go now, again, similar things for labels. You can actually do your labels as already demonstrated. And then the same thing with inboxing sections. You have that capacity also to inbox your section and inbox your section as per labels within your own personal email as well. So if you're getting work email in your personal email, maybe you want to create a label for that email and label that email as work, and then create that section that you're able to filter out all of those emails into the labels. And again, for my personal, I say Well, yeah, for my personal email, I have it here as don't overwrite filters, just because sometimes there are certain emails that I know that are junk, and I don't want them to come into my inbox. And then you click save changes on that. So now let's go back again. Yeah, so I have some few filters that I've blocked. Okay, so let's go back into our inbox. The one thing that I wanted to show you now is what Smart Compose looks like. So that's something that I've mentioned very briefly. Um, let's say if we're writing an email, hello, my name is Tina. Okay, it's not coming up. Let's see here if my setting works. But generally with Smart Compose, yeah, so my writing suggestions turn on, so I'm not really sure why it's not suggesting. But if you have it turned on and your browser is it's updated, once you start writing, it will suggest different text for you. And then the other thing is that, say when you're responding to an email, um, let's say if I wanted to respond to an email like this one, say predictive. It doesn't suggest either. But you'll find that for certain emails that when you're starting to compose, it actually suggests responses for you. So for example, let's say if Mode was to send me an email and say, Tina, how are you? Right? When if I'm responding to that email, the Gmail Smart Compose option, where it actually gives you a few options for responses that you can just select, and you just, you've responded to that email. Or you can actually, once you start typing, then it feeds in, it suggests certain words that you can use to finish your emails. And then the other thing that is also really important with your personal inboxes is the hover. So the hover I mentioned, you see it in both your G Suite account and also in your personal account. But there's one feature in the hover that you don't get in the G Suite account, but it is in your personal account. So the hover, if you see here, if you hover on an email, you see here there is an option to archive that email, or to delete, or to mark as unread, or to snooze. So the snooze function is the one that I really wanted to show you guys about, because it's an amazing function to have. And again, it's a really interesting function, but it's only in the personal account. So what this means essentially is that if you have an email where it's a conversation happening, and you don't have the time necessarily to engage in that conversation in the email, or um, you don't even if it's not a conversation, it's just one email, but you don't have the time necessarily to really engage and respond to that email, you can snooze it, so that when you have the time, it goes back into your unread folder, and then you can actually then respond to that email. So let's say if I wanted to snooze this email, let's go back. So you click on that snooze. So then I can just select a day. So say if I select, let's say Tuesday, and then I can, Tuesday 8 a.m. And then you snooze that email, and then Tuesday 8 a.m. that email is going to come back into your unread folder. So the Smart Compose is just within your actual, if you're looking for the setting, let's go back into the Smart Compose setting just so that everyone's on the same page. So you go into the settings, and then you go into your inbox, the settings for your inbox, I think. Let's see. Don't override all important accounts and imports. It should be in your inbox setting. Let's see here. Yeah, so okay, if you go into your settings and then if you go into just the general settings, so that's the first tab in the settings section of the email, the smart compose will be just right there close to where you actually have to identify the text to use within the email. So it's just going to be there. So those are the key things that I really wanted to show you within the new G Suite. And then the other thing also is that, and this is a feature that's not in the G Suite account as well, is the confidential mode. So the confidential mode is, it basically allows you to send a confidential email that will eventually expire. So it's a very private email, maybe it contains very sensitive information, and you don't want everyone to have access to that information. You can actually also generate a password for that, an SMS passcode for that email, so that only the recipient can have access to it. So let's say if I wanted to create an email that should be sent in confidential mode, um, you select your expiration. So if you wanted that email to expire in a day, you select it in a day, or say in a week. And then say if you want it to require a passcode, then you just select the passcode and then you save. So then you will see here this the blue button just essentially highlighting that this is an email that actually will eventually expire. So it's a private email. um, and then you can then just compose your email, and that's it. So all of the settings in there, and then you can just compose your email and send it to the direct recipient, and that should be it. So once the email reaches that the limit that you set for it, so whether it's 1 day, whether it's 1 week, whether it's a month, it actually just expires from the inbox, so it won't be there anymore. So that's a function that is currently only in the personal, but at some point, I think, as you know, Google has already mentioned that some of these features that are only in the personal email will be carried over into the G Suite email, just so that having access to that, because in real estate you're transferring so much information, sharing so much information that's confidential. Being able to have that function and make use of it is really important. And I just wanted us to have it, and in as much as we might not be using it now within the G Suite, it's important to know about it. And when the time comes for us to actually use it, then we can go ahead and do so. So let's go back into our at Royal LePage email. The one thing that we're moving away now from the inbox, because I've shown you some of the specifics that I really wanted to show you in the inbox. Those are things that I feel are quite important. The confidential mode is just per email. So there isn't a setting. So if you wanted to turn on your confidential mode, so if you're in your personal email, so let's say if I go into my personal email, and then when you're composing, there is that little key. So if you see, there is a key here at the very bottom, and then it just has like a timer, like a clock. So just showing there's an expiry on that. So there isn't a setting for confidential mode because it's per email. So right now it's only for personal emails. Yes. So you don't have it on the G Suite one. So if you're composing an email, that's when you can actually set the expiration for that specific email, right? Because you're not setting it for your entire inbox. You're setting it for a specific email. So if that isn't showing for you, then it hasn't been activated. But if it is showing, then it means that you have it. So again, if you are, as I mentioned already, these are key features that Google has rolled out, but they haven't rolled it out for everyone. And some of these features that I'm mentioning are features, even though they're in the personal emails, those are features that will be coming back. They're transferring those features into the G Suite email, into G Suite accounts. So those are features that will be coming into the G Suite accounts. So for example, confidential mode is something that's going to be coming through. A lot of the suggestive writing, the smart compose is also going to be coming to the G Suite account. So it's not yet on all accounts, even personal accounts. It's not all on it's not on all personal accounts, sorry, because it's still at that testing phase, right? So the point here is to make sure that we know how to use this thing so that when they do arrive, then we can just take advantage of it. So it's not rolled out for everyone, but I know I think most people in the office here, they have it. Um, but yeah, so that's another key one. And again, like as I mentioned, a lot of even a lot of people who have this the G Suite the new Gmail within the personal email, not all of those key features are actually you find that, for example, I might have the confidential mode, but maybe mode might not have it, or another colleague might not have it, but they have the new Gmail account. But what that means is that Google is still at that point where they're actually testing out these features, and then at some point it will be rolled out across all of the personal and then across all of the G Suite accounts as well. So it's just to make sure that we're staying on top of this new development. And if you do have it, I just wanted to make sure for those agents who do have these features that you're able to use it and you're able to take advantage of it. Again, the other thing that I wanted to this will be a very brief overview that I wanted to show is Google Drive. Actually, before we go into Google Drive, the other thing that I think would be important is there are a few changes in the G Suite account, also the G Suite account also that I think is really important. So if you look here at the very side of your email, I don't know if you see that. So if you have the new G Suite, then you will see it. So if you see here at the very top, you actually have the calendar function, which is within the email, and then you have keep, which is really important. And then you also have task, right? So what calendar allows you to do essentially is that you can start scheduling appointments or events directly from within your email. So for example, if I have an email that say if I open an email that has a date and time and has an event schedule, I open that email and then I open my calendar. As I start typing that event, essentially that event within my email carries over to the calendar. So I just essentially save it. So that's a really key feature in terms of just planning your day-to-day very easily, especially if you're making a lot of appointments by email. And that's a key one to know. The other thing is the task. So with task, what is really important here is that you can essentially just drag an email and create a task for that email. So you can, say if you've dragged it, you can add a date for when you want that to be done. So like a deadline for you. And then within that task, you can create subtasks. So it allows you to say if it's an email that requires a lot of different action items, then you can go ahead and create a task just by dragging that email and all of its details as well. Um, and yeah, so if we go back again, um, yeah, so if we go back again to calendar, so this is just a preview of it, but now I'm going to actually take you to the actual calendar app itself. So if we go into calendar, so this is my calendar view. And then, so you can see the different calendars that I have. So I have learning services and I have different meetings. So if you wanted to add a calendar, you would be able to add a new calendar either by browsing calendars that are within your space. So if you're browsing resources that you have access to, if you're browsing from a URL that if you have an internal URL that you, for example, schedule a lot of your activities, you can just sort of sync that into your calendar. Or you can also just directly import. So you can import your calendar from your, so if you have um, a Mac, for example, you can import your calendar from your MacBook into your Gmail calendar. And yeah, and then again, adding an event, you just very easily add an event here. Um, in terms of location, usually if you already have um, say if you're within a space where you have certain locations already predetermined within your actual calendar, then you can easily you can easily book spaces. For example, so if I had an options for, let's say if I had options for different rooms within the office, within the building, so different conference rooms, then you'd be able to directly book those from here. But I don't actually have it installed in there, so you can't really see it. um and then if you, yeah, so I've already shown you how to add a calendar. That's about it. The one thing now that I think is really important, and I think this is also just generally making sure that we're able to um, use a lot of these tools as in a very efficient way, so that it's not adding into our processes, like our work process, but actually taking away from it. Is the It's the Google Drive. So this is one of the last tools that I wanted to show you. And again, just very simple, show you how to actually maybe create different folders. And again, I create folders here based on the same way that, for example, I create labels in my email. So I would think of the different tasks that I do on a daily basis and create folders for that. So if I have, for example, folder for inboxes, for invoices, folders for trainings, folders for different things, and then you can obviously you can sub-label those folders, so you can have folders within that folder. So let's say I'm in Drive right now, and then I wanted to create a new folder. You just click on that new tab, and then you create a folder. And then once you've created a folder, let's say if I go down, my folders are up here. So let's say if I go to a folder and then I wanted to upload a document specifically into that folder, you just click on the folder drop down menu, and then it allows you to do different things. So it allows you to create a new folder within that. It allows you to share that. It allows you to move this folder to another folder, and it allows for you to open this folder essentially with different apps. So if you have different apps download that allow, maybe Word apps, for example, that allow you to read text on your phone, that allows you to store documents and folders on your phone, then you'd be able to open this within that app. So now then, if I wanted to upload a file, the same thing, you just click on upload a file, and then if you cut, you select, say I select a file, and then I just click on upload. And then I can, yeah, so then I can specify again, if I wanted to move that file into a specific folder, I can go ahead and do that. So I'm just showing or wanting to do a brief overview on Google Drive again, just to ensure that in addition to our email, the email is the most important one for this webinar, but um, in addition to our email, just to make sure that we know how that we do have access to our Google Drive and we can use it to share information, within a team and also with our clients. They Yes, I think for Blair's question, definitely, but if that will have to depend on the sharing. So it has to be shared only between you and the client. So that document can be shared with anyone else. So yeah, so for example, if I shared a document here with a client, you share that document, you have to really ensure that you're the only person who has access to that specific folder. So anyone who tries to gain access into the folder will not be allowed to, and they'll be requested essentially to request access from you. So yeah, you can definitely do that, but you have to double check and make sure that no one but you and the client have access to that folder and to the specific documents, because you have to allow access for both. So yeah, I think that's really all that I really wanted to talk about today. I think for me, the most important thing was to make sure that we talked a lot about the different labels and how we can organize our emails, and then looking at nudges. Yeah, so you're looking at nudges and how to snooze your email in your inbox, creating labels, and also just showing you the confidential mode. So yeah, so I really just wanted to show you all of that. In as much as it's not, it hasn't been sort of released across all of the platform. This is a direction that Google is going towards, and eventually all of these functions, such as confidential email that you have in the personal email, will be coming to the G Suite email, and similarly also being able to snooze an email, like just hovering on an email and being able to snooze it. You have that function in the personal email. That's a function that's also going to be carried over into the 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 suite email. So yeah, essentially that's it. I think it's if you guys have any further question, you can definitely send me an email. You can email me at learning learning services at royallepage.ca, and I'll go ahead and respond to whatever questions that you have. Um, yeah, so so I think for now I've shown the most important of the issues that I thought, or the features that I thought were most important for you to know. Um, any last Oh, okay. So if you, so Joe, you want me to address the benefits of G Suite? So there are definitely a lot of benefit. The first one, I think, for a business is a storage space, and you have. I'm not sure exactly what the amount is versus the personal, but I know that there's a vast difference. I think for the personal, you have maybe 12 gigs or something like that, but for the G Suite, the storage space is quite a lot, which I think for a business that allows you the ability to actually store information within your cloud and so forth. And within the G Suite also, I think there are certain, let's see here, there's certain apps that you have access to that you don't have with the personal. So there are certain apps that you can integrate within your G Suite account that you can't necessarily do so within your personal account. So this has to do with it could be sort of different marketing apps or CRM apps, or different apps that you can integrate into your account if you have a business account. Whereas in your personal account, you can't really do that. You need to actually carry over into a business account to be able to do that. So there are a lot of there's yeah. So the main difference would be that. So the main difference would be the storage space, and the main difference would be integration. So the different types of apps that you can actually integrate within your G Suite account that you can't integrate within your personal account. And the storage space isn't just for like emails, for example. It carries over to Google to Drive, and as well, and also to your cloud, to your yeah. So I think those are the main two ones. Yeah, okay. So yeah, so the G Suite account is unlimited storage, so you can actually store as much information and document as you can. So that's really great for a business. You're not paying extra. Well, you're not paying extra for that storage space. But I think for a personal, it's just yeah, I think it's somewhere either between 12 or 15 gigs, something like that, which is not really that much, because 12 gigs is pretty much around the same storage space that you have on your phone, right? So those are the two key features. And I think if you're looking, again, if you're running, depending on the different types of business that you have, there are different apps that you can integrate within your G Suite email, even that you can do with a personal, right? So there are a lot of CRMs that can be integrated within your Gmail, so that you can actually use your Gmail email as a CRM tool. And then there are a lot of different ones as well. So those are some of the key features. So yeah, thanks again. We do have, in addition to me, we do have our customer care team, and they're here to definitely provide all of the support in terms of navigating this new Gmail that we're moving towards. It's going to be a slow process of Google trying to transfer everything over, um, but definitely it's something that they're moving towards doing. So I just wanted to make sure that um, we all have this information moving forward. So the contact information for the bilingual customer care team is here. They open Monday to Friday, and they can answer whatever question that you have regarding Gmail. They're here to support you. I'm also here, so if you have any questions after this session, you can definitely email me at learningservices@royallepage.ca or at tmbachu@royallepage.ca, and I will definitely respond to all of your questions. So yeah, I wanted to take my time again to thank you for joining us. And yeah, I see here that George has added some few benefits with regards to G Suite. G Suite versus the personal, so that's great. So there are definitely some benefits to having the G Suite account, aside from the storage. Depending on the different types of businesses that you're engaged in, there are different apps that you can integrate. There are different um, yeah, and I think with this, especially the confidential mode, with that, if slowly coming over into the G Suite account, it's going to be really important if you're sending out confidential information, and you can set this expiry date to say, and even set a passcode to say that only the specific contact can have access to this email, and this email will expire after a certain time frame. So it adds that extra level of security to that email and the content within the email as well. So thanks again to everyone for joining us today. I do apologize for the little inconvenience that we had in the beginning with the sound. I'm happy that we got that resolved and we were able to continue on with the session. Thank you very much, and I hope you'll have a good rest of your Wednesday. And again, don't hesitate to reach out if you have any further questions. Thank you, and bye.